Hello and welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I am the actor.
My name is Josh Knapp. I'm the broadcast engineer.
Here we go, Josh.
So today we're going to talk about a Netflix documentary called The Social Dilemma. It just came out a few weeks ago, I think, and it's interesting because it's a documentary about how social media can shape the minds of the people that use it. And so the cool thing about this documentary to me, and why I was interested in seeking it out and why I wanted to talk to you about it, was that it's not one of these like conspiracy theory documentaries. I told you like a few weeks ago I watched Room 237, and it's kind of like this is people just sitting at home just kind of ruminating on what Stanley Kubrick wanted or what his motivation was. Well, this documentary is people talking about what social media does to you and where the focus of social media is. And the people that are talking are people who actually designed these things, whether it's the guy who designed the like button or, people who started VR or started, Instagram or Facebook or were in the first small group of Facebook. These are people who were there from ground zero. And it seems like they all kind of had really good intentions. But then once they found how this kind of chimera spread out, they backed away. And so now they're kind of talking about why they've backed away from all of their positions super high up in all of these different companies, Facebook, Google, Instagram, Twitter, you name it. And there's people represented from each of those groups here. So the other thing about this, which I did not expect, was that it had this kind of like narrative element to it, which I hadn't seen before. How did you like that? That seemed weird. Like, how long did it take for you to like realize what was going on? Because it took me a few seconds to be like, oh, okay, all right, these are actors, not like some documentary thing.
It took me a shorter period of time to realize that they were actors than it took for me to realize that they weren't reenacting something. Like I thought they were going to be like the Facebook founders or the Twitter founders, and that this was the Twitter founders' family and how it affected his family when we saw the actors. Because I know all those actors. The one guy from Mad Men, the other guy from
Santa Clarita Diet. That's where I know him from because Steph and I love that show. Skylar Gisondo.
Gisondo, that's a good name. And he was also in the movie about the two young girls who were graduating from high school and wanted to have a great last night of their senior year. Booksmart. I kept thinking Bad Education, and I'm like, no, that's I guess I should write those things down before I start talking about them. But and he plays that kind of strange, kind of neurotic, insecure character in both those two things that we just mentioned. But he doesn't in here. So that's cool. Mm-hmm. I like that. He's just this normal, down-to-earth teenage kid, and what the effects of the social network and his cell phone and the computers and all that other stuff have on him. So I thought they were going to reenact stuff. So it was a refreshing thing to see a narrative inside a documentary. Do I think it was necessary? Maybe not, but I like the idea of putting the guy who played three different characters as if he's inside the computer and he was the guy who was deciding to manipulate.
Vincent Kartheiser.
Yeah, manipulating this young kid's brain to be addicted to his phone. So I like that. And that image of the three guys manipulating somebody's choices has stuck with me because now every time I pick up my phone, I'm thinking, wait, did I click on that or did I pull that up? What's happening here? And so because I'm used to a narrative, it gave me something to cling on to emotionally above and beyond all of the factual things that I was learning about this world. So it didn't take long, but I was glad that it wasn't reenacting, the first day meeting Steve Jobs or first day meeting Mark Zuckerberg, which I was watching The Social Network at the same time, by the way. I just pulled it up for whatever reason and started to watch that. And I was halfway through it when I watched this documentary and then went back to finishing it. I haven't seen it. I've seen it twice, I think, but I haven't seen it in a year. So I wanted to watch it again. Yeah, it's a great movie.
It is a great movie. Yeah, I did like the fact that it personalized it personified the AI or, the artificial intelligence that is being used to create all of these algorithms that are deciding how to control, like how to put together your feed, whether it's an Instagram feed or whether it's a Facebook feed or anything like that. Even to some extent, Google results and all of these different Twitter feeds, these types of things, where they're trying to figure out how to get you, not even just, we're used to people trying to get us to click on things. I think that the longer you've had a computer and the longer you've had interactions with the internet, you know that the way that they are trying to sell things to you is by engaging you. But with these closed, like walled gardens of Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, they have a captive audience, and their number one priority is to get you to stay there and to not go anywhere else. Because they say it a few times in the film, is that they're really, if you look around and you don't see them selling anything, like, and you're not actually spending money on anything, and it's free, everything's free, then you are the product. And that is the key that I think a lot of people know now. Like, they are willing to enter into that contract of like, yes, I will be able to use Google every day that I want for free, but Google may be tracking, well, Google is definitely tracking what I'm clicking on, but I don't know if people really understand how much information they're getting on you. You may think a regular person may think that, they know what I click on, or basic things. Like, I didn't click on the first 3 things, so I clicked on the 4th thing. But they also know like how far down the page you scrolled. These are very specific things. They kind of go into that in this movie, and I do like how they personify that, but with the 3 Vincent Kartheisers trying to come up with ways to keep you on. And also the craziest part was ways to monetize. The fact that they know that you're probably going to look at this picture or this ad for 3 seconds, therefore they can charge 7.5 cents for it. And the fact that ad isn't even sold until microseconds before you actually see it. That's the crazy part to me. It's just amazing that not only that it's such a growing organism and a shifting organism. And that's some stuff that I didn't even know going into this documentary. I did kind of know the basics of dynamic ad insertion and things like that, and tracking people and tracking behaviors. But I think what a lot of people in this documentary are talking about is, it's not just tracking your behaviors and knowing what your behaviors are going to be. It's kind of like very slightly changing your behaviors. And that's the scary part to me. I mean, I kind of am already, like, I don't really do anything with Facebook, and I am, generally not on Twitter all the time or anything like that. And it's because I have some kind of a skepticism about all of that, and I don't necessarily want to be told what I'm going to do. That really bugs me. The kind of like, no, we know what kind of a person you are. And I kind of do, I see it in YouTube and things like that, where it's like, we're recommending this for you. And it's like, man, of course I want to watch that video. And it's like, how did you know I wanted to watch a video like that? I've never even heard of this person, but I do want to watch their video now that I've seen the thumbnail and the title and the, how many people have watched it, and other videos that are related to it. And it's just like, I mean, part of me is kind of like, it's amazing the world that we live in, that I get things brought to me. It's like I've got my own little video butler that brings me interesting videos that I can watch. But then at the same time, like, I've already given up what my decision-making process is to this company, and that company has the ability to monetize that. So that's some scary stuff. I mean, there are services you can pay for. You can pay for like a premium version of YouTube where you don't see ads, or you can pay for premium version of Spotify or whatever. But most people aren't gonna really like go into that. They're gonna use whatever tool they can use for as little money as possible. And I totally understand that. But the scary part that I wanted to kind of come back to was this quote by the father of VR, Jaron Lanier, that was super scary to me. And it's not that, if you look around and nobody's selling anything, then you are the product. It's that they have the ability to have to make a gradual, slight, imperceptible change in your own behavior and perception, and that's the product. So it's not just you that's the product; it's the ability to tweak you. And the the Facebook guy said this too, where there's like dials. The guy who was in charge of monetizing Facebook, where they wanted to have these dials that have the ability to turn up or turn down viewer or user engagement in a particular geographic location or in a particular subsection of people. And that stuff is like super scary to me. That's like supervillain stuff, right?
That's exactly what the cigarette companies did to promote smoking in The Insider, where people were not buying cigarettes because they started to promote healthier lifestyles. So they would lower the nicotine level in the cigarettes so people would buy more to get the nicotine that they needed. It's kind of the same thing if you think about it. Yes, one leads to cancer, so maybe you could justify it, and one leads to, I don't know, brain death. I don't know. I don't know what this will eventually lead to.
Nobody does.
Right, exactly. That's scary. That's first thing that's scary. The thing that was the scariest for me is, first of all, Vincent Kartheiser, his Madman guy, married to Alexis Bledel, by the way,
I didn't
Gilmore
know
Girl. Yeah, she was a guest star on Mad Men. Very talented. She just won the Emmy last year for The Handmaid's Tale. Deservedly so, too, by the way. You know, it's a Gilmore Girl. Come on. They call the three characters are advertising AI, engagement AI, and growth AI. So that part where you see them dialing things up to get the kid to come back online was scary. But the thing, I don't know who said it, but the thing that freaked me out the most was, you think that the Matrix is this scary AI creature or presence that we're worried about AI taking over? Knock, knock. Hello, Neo. They already have. Yeah. Because what these AIs do is learn from you what your likes are and what your dislikes are. And not only does it slightly alter who you are or your perception of the world, it actually learns from you to create new things that you might be interested in. So an algorithm is written, but it grows and it learns and it becomes, they didn't say, what was the word, sentient? They didn't say that, but they said that these things start when the programmer programs it 5-10 years from now. It's a completely different program because it has learned from whatever. That to me was scary because AI already is doing the things that we have fictionalized in movies. We just put it in a robot form or a Miss Agent Smith form or a Matrix form. And this is all me. None of this is in the documentary. This is just what I took from it, but it's actually happening now. So when you do wake up and you do check your phone before you go to the bathroom, what does that say? You're thinking you're just checking your email for the day, or I'm checking my mail to see if a photograph came in because we're waiting for our ballots to come in because we did mail-in ballots this year. So we didn't have to go out to the polls for all the obvious reasons. 83-year-old father, 2020, coronavirus, you name the reasons. Anyway, so they take a picture at the post office and they send me an email of what's coming in the mail that day. So if it's important or it's significant, I will go and get the mail immediately. Sometimes I don't look at it at all because I'm not anticipating anything. But if I do look at it and see an email that says blah, blah, blah's coming in, I go straight down to get the mail just in case. I mean, I don't want anybody messing with Social Security stuff, Medicaid stuff, Medicare stuff, father stuff, my stuff, that kind of stuff. So does the Matrix have me now? Does it have me at this point? Because I do look at my phone and I will scroll over to Twitter and see if anybody said anything to us or anything interesting happens. Mostly it's only when the number comes up, like one person on Facebook has reached out to me or 3 people on Twitter have said something to us or in Twitter world that I want to know about. If Twitter is not numbered or Facebook is not numbered, I don't look at it. I will look at it eventually, but it's not the first thing I look at. Or a text. Who knows? It could be you saying we can't do the podcast for the night. Who knows? It could be 1,000 different reasons. It could be the video, the door camera clicked off at night or clicked on at night, and I need to see if something happened. So it's hard to figure out, has one more thing gotten me? I mean, I have an addictive personality. I used to smoke cigarettes. I've done a lot of different things in my life. And you don't really realize you're in the middle of an addiction. You know, I used to have weight problems and food problems and blah, blah, blah. You don't really realize it until you're trying to get out of it that it really was a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was, the crazy part about it is, about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, before you had suggested, actually, we were talking about this documentary after the podcast last week. And I said, well, let's talk about that. About 2 weeks ago, I realized that my phone has stopped me from continuously reading when I read. I'll read 30 pages and then I'll pick up my phone. And then I'll scroll through Facebook, I'll scroll through Twitter, whatever it may be. I have got to turn my phone off to not hear notifications if I'm reading. The thing that was the most prominent in this realization was that when I read a book, a real book, or listen to it on tape and read along with it, because I have taken to doing that if the book is dense and hard for me to read, it actually feels like the best of the both worlds. It feels like your brain is reading like the narrator is reading, but you're reading along with it. So it actually feels like you're reading too. So it's a little bit different than just listening to a book on tape. You're actually putting in the effort to read along with it. Then that voice becomes your voice. I just wish that would be the way I could read the rest of the books that I read. But anyway, when I put down a book, I never feel like I've wasted time. I never feel like I should have been doing something else, or I should have been cutting the backyard, or I should have been hanging out with my dad, or I should be learning a monologue, or I should be reading reading never makes me feel like I'm wasting time, no matter what it is, no matter if I have 3 million things I've got to deal with and I procrastinate. If I'm reading, I feel like I've occupied my time in the correct way. Never do I feel like I've wasted it. I have spent a half an hour to 45 minutes scrolling through Facebook. I get off it. My eyes hurt from the screen. As soon as I turn the screen off, I'm like, that's what's wrong with my eyes. Like, this brightness has been bothering me this whole time, and I just don't realize it until I turn it off. And then I think to myself, oh my God, I should have cut the backyard. Oh my God, I should be learning that monologue. Oh my God, I should be cleaning out this. Oh my God, I should be doing that. Oh, I should have prepared food. I should have started dinner. I haven't talked to my dad in 45. I feel like I've wasted my time.
Mm-hmm.
Never do I feel that way when I'm reading a book. I don't feel that way about watching movies, but I think I mentioned this also to you, that recently I have been watching movies and pausing them and doing something in the meantime and then going back to them. That is not me. I don't normally do that. If I sit down for a 2-hour movie, I watch the whole 2-hour movie.
Yep.
Granted, there are circumstances in life with my father and having to go to the bathroom and just his health and stuff that I can't necessarily, if I'm here helping him, just take 2 hours to ignore him. I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
The question would be, is if I got so used to my phone that if I went to a movie in the theater without the circumstances the way that they are now in the world, would I have an urge to pick up my phone? Because you see that in the movie theaters all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm venturing to say that I think I might get to that point if I didn't see this documentary and I wasn't aware of my addictive personality trait. Because I normally turn my phone off, not because I don't want to hear it, but because I don't want to disturb anybody else. Because I hate that the worst. So turn your phone off. You're in a movie theater. You spend a lot of money to see a movie. So the point to all of that is I can feel myself becoming that type of person. Now, I am 10 years before the computer generation. So I had 10 years of adulthood before the computer generation took over. So maybe I can monitor it that way because I have not grown up with it.
Yeah.
It's like I grew up with albums, not CDs. So I can be accustomed to an album because I grew up with an album, but I got accustomed to CDs. So I'm wondering if I was part of this generation, I would be part of the Matrix. I would be plugged in and I would just go. And it's sad.
I think that's our saving grace, is that we know of a time before the internet, first of all. And secondly, we know of a time before social media networks. And so we know that there is a possibility that you can live and you can live a happy life before, without Twitter or without Instagram or without Snapchat or without TikTok or without whatever your favorite thing is. You can still have a life without that. But for the kids who have been exposed to it early, exposed to it young, and have free reign within those arenas, they probably can't imagine a time without that. And I know I sound like, I'm an old man, get off my lawn, but it doesn't really, it doesn't mean that. I mean, there was like one little bitty scene in there where the girl was his younger sister, the main character in the narrative, his younger sister was just looking at herself in the mirror while there was a voiceover of someone kind of explaining that what you see on Instagram or Facebook is not necessarily how people live their lives, and it's not how people's lives are in actuality. And it's because you have the way to curate your life in a particular way, and the things that get promoted and the things that are most popular are the most idealized things in a very small subset of humanity. And so that is what everyone, bases their lives against, or bases their perception of what their life should be against. And so it was also, I guess it wasn't shocking, but it was also revealing that each of these people, when asked about, what their kind of like screen time policy is with their kids, some of them said like very minimal screen time, and some of them said none. They're just trying their best to prevent their kids. It is like, we definitely want to make sure our kids don't get exposed to drugs. It was very similar to, we're trying to make sure that, nothing bad happens to our child by looking at Instagram. Maybe if it was just a person off the street that said that, you might be like, oh, you're a little kooky. But the fact that these are the people who actually designed these and saw them expand and spider out the way that they have, and they're so worried about it, that shocks me. And it makes me really scared for how we're going to deal with things going forward. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is that we now have the ability to, by these algorithms, by these artificial intelligence algorithms that kind of grow on their own, the people that kind of start them may not even necessarily have malicious intent. Much like the people that we're interviewing there. But the scary part is that even if things get into a more malicious, vein, there aren't as many people trying to correct that. And it seems like it would be something fairly simple. You can tamp things down, but at the same time, that's also kind of like turning off the money spigot in a lot of ways. Because one of the other speakers that they interviewed was Shoshana Zuboff. She was a professor at Harvard Business School, and she talked about how the way to monetize these services is that they sell certainty. And that was interesting to me, and it helped me to differentiate these new social media networks and the monetization of these new social media networks from traditional media, non-social media, whether it's newspapers, radio, television. Each of those mediums, I'm in one of them, but each of those media, I guess, have a way to interact with the public. And those are all broadcast advertisements. And so with those, you don't have certainty. You can play a commercial on my TV station, but you don't know exactly how many people watched it. We can extrapolate that. We have Nielsen ratings, and we kind of know, how many people are watching, but it's an extrapolated number. We don't know exactly every single person, how many of all the people that were watching at that given time watched that commercial, or watched it all the way through, or watched 5 seconds of it and changed the channel. But on social media, you do. You know all of those things. And that is something that someone can say, like, all right, I'll pay 10 cents for somebody to look at this ad. And it's like, oh, well, they only looked at it for 3 seconds. Well, then next time I'm going to pay 5 cents for it because they needed to look at it for 10 seconds. So it's these are the things that allow for very quick adjustments to monetization, which makes it a lot more efficient for the advertisers and more impactful for them, I'm sure. And it also gives them the certainty that, yes, in fact, this many people did see your ad. Whereas with television and radio and newspapers, it's a lot more naive. And I think it's a little bit, in a lot of ways, it's less malicious. You can very well change the channel if a commercial comes on, and then change it back when the commercial goes away. But there's really no way to get away from advertising in social media. The other thing about newspapers, radio and television is that they're all regulated to a certain extent. I know that television and radio are definitely regulated as far as like what you can and can't say, specific words, subject matter, images that you can and can't show on television, broadcast television and radio. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that like my TV station and every other TV station in the United States has a civic duty to serve the public. And that includes emergency alerts, national alerts, weather alerts, amber alerts, silver alerts, all these things that we're, bound to get out, to disseminate out to the public because we have the ability to do that. And we also have the ability to make money on the programs that we show and all of those things. But at the same time, there's always something that's binding us to serving the public. Whereas social media has none of that. They have no regulation, barely any regulation. They have nothing binding them to the public whatsoever, other than they need the public to survive. And I think that it's one of those things where it's just like, if TV went away, people's lives would be affected negatively, I think. And if social media went away, I think we could probably be okay.
Okay, so that was a lot because I have like 3 different things I need to ask you about. No, it's not that it was a lot. It's just that there's a lot going in my brain. So I had to like get in here because I have a couple of questions. So first question, if TV, newspapers, radio could figure out how many viewers were affected by that advertising or that commercial or that advertisement, would they take advantage of it like social media? It can't be answered because it can't be done.
Not in the traditional manner, but like, we have a website.
Right. But what I'm saying is that if a TV commercial, there's some kind of counter on a TV, and it counts how many times or how long a commercial is being viewed by somebody before they turn it off, or you can instantaneously buy this online, so you can go online and they can tell how many people bought it because of this advertisement. Yep. Would they be taking advantage of it like social media is? Because which came first, the chicken or the egg? Is it wrong for somebody to count how many minutes a person lasts online so they can advertise appropriately because they can? Is it wrong because they can, or is it wrong because they are doing it to the detriment of the public? I'm not saying that you need to answer these questions. I'm just posing these questions. Cereal commercials were not allowed to be shown during certain times on Saturday morning because they were full of sugar. And then certain things were changed. By the way, most of those companies are changing their original packaging back. So Sugar Puffs or whatever it was that turned into...
Are you talking about Sugar Smacks? Yeah, Sugar Smacks.
Sugar Smacks,
They're not
right.
Sugar Smacks anymore.
Right.
They're just like Smacks or something. Yeah.
Well, all of those companies are going back to their original packaging with their Count Chocolas on it or whatever it is that, sells sugar to kids. But so TV was regulated, radio was regulated, language is regulated, all that stuff is regulated. If we could allow TV and all of those other medias to do whatever they want, would it have the same effect? Let's say, hypothetically, the internet never exists, doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. If we didn't regulate it, would those media, would they take advantage of it? So I'm not saying it's right or wrong that the internet is taking advantage of it. I'm just saying that isn't it part of human nature to monetize everything in a capitalistic society? And I've got no problem with capitalism, none. I'm saying the best man can win. I'm just saying that, like, why wouldn't you if you could?
I think that the big issue is they talk about it very quickly in the movie, but Moore's Law, which is something that's used in advancement of technology, how the advancement of technology is not linear. It's not like, oh, we can do 5,000 calculations in 1982 and we can do 10,000 calculations in 1983 and we can do 20,000. I mean, it's exponential. It is extreme, the difference from year to year to year. So the amount of data that could be processed in 2000 or in 1997 when Google was started is minuscule compared to the amount of data that can be processed today. And so really the limit is not even, the limit is like computers can you shove into a building and keep it turned on? How much power can they pull from the electric power grid? Because that's the limit. It's not how big of a computer can you make, or any of that, or how much data can you store, because that's effectively infinite now, and it's only going to get more and more and more advanced. So at some point, there was always a ceiling as far as what computers could do, and now that ceiling is starting to evaporate. It's starting to be like, our ceiling needs to be somewhat of a moral ceiling, or somewhat of an interpersonal ceiling, as opposed to a technological ceiling.
Okay, so that brings me to my first point about how you started this part of the conversation. You were talking about responsibility, and what responsibility do we have to regulating these things for our kids, for people who have addictive personalities. But and trust me, I think things need to be controlled to a degree, or regulated is a better word for me. Control kind of bothers me. But if it wasn't this, it would be something else.
Sure.
Human nature and the human condition is racked with abusive, alcoholic, drug addict, self-mutilating, just horrible conditions that we have as part of our nature. And we have, for the time we've existed, that they were able to take and write down history or record history any way that they could, the cave paintings or whatever. What is different now? There's more people who have access to something that can make them less off as a human being. But if some caveman kills an extra beast and decides to hide it from the tribe and take it into his cave and feed his family for a week longer because that was the survival thing, and instead of sharing it, they gorged it down themselves because that's part of human nature, then what's the difference? Right now, it's the same thing as allowing your children to watch too much TV when TV came out, allowing your children to drink too much diet soda when it came out because we knew that wasn't good. I mean, come on. Allowing your hospitals to allow smoking in your room. There were ashtrays on the aisles of the supermarket growing up. So we find these things out. They're bad for us. Click it or ticket is always my example. We have to make it a law to have people put seatbelts on because we are killing each other by not doing it, but we have to make a law. And then people fight against that.
Yeah.
You can't smoke in the Hollywood Hills because if you throw your cigarette out, look at what happens. The sky turns into 2049 Blade Runner.
Yeah.
So, like, literally,
really, yeah.
Some of those pictures in the paper were like, I thought I was looking at a new Blade Runner film because I was like, what is this with the San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge? I was like, this is crazy. I was like, the cinematographer on this film is going to win an Oscar. And then you're like, this is real life. So I am not the kind of person who I'm like, live and let live. I do believe in red lights and stoplights. And I do believe you have to follow rules. And you have to have decorum in this world. We'll leave that one alone for right now. You have to have respect for other people in this world. But who are you to tell me, not you, just second person, who is anybody to tell me how long I can spend on the internet? That's one side of it. The other side is, just like when the cigarette companies were found out for doing that, they were not told to stop doing that. What they did was they put a financial incentive on them to say, okay, you are no longer going to be able to do this, this, and this. So unless you advertise for how bad smoking is and you give this amount of money for cancer research, they monetize the other side. So my question is this: the kids who go to school and have cell phones, okay, you have two sides of an argument there. Me personally, I would not think it was right for my kid to turn their cell phone on in the middle of a class. But there are parents who believe that the kids should be allowed to be able to reach out in case of an emergency to anybody they feel like they need to reach out to in that emergency. My argument to that would be, my heavy discussion to that would be, well, what the hell did kids do 20 years ago if there was an emergency? They went to the school office and said, call 911. I mean, they didn't have a cell phone to pick up and say, Uncle Bob, come and pick me up. My teacher's being mean to me. So there are a lot of schools that are making students turn their cell phones in and they put up like a shoe rack, and each desk is numbered and each slot in the shoe rack is numbered. So desk 1, that's where you put your cell phone, and so forth and so on. And you're supposed to turn the cell phone off. Are there devices that do not allow cell phones to work? I've heard that churches and some places have devices that can block a cell phone from working. Is that the truth?
I mean, yeah, you can just flood that localized area with just random radiation in the same band as a cell phone tower uses to communicate with a cell phone. So that would be one way to do it.
And it would stop that classroom from using cell phones.
I mean, their cell phones would still function in the way that like they could play localized games or something. If they had like a Sudoku on their phone, then they could play Sudoku. But if they were trying to text somebody, the texting wouldn't work, for example.
So what the computer companies and the internet companies need to do is give money to the schools to develop that technology so the school is a cell phone free zone during these times. So during your math class, you turn this device on and no one can use their cell phone. This stops from cheating. It stops from interruptions, that kind of stuff.
That also means teachers can't use their cell phones.
So what would you need a cell phone for if you were a teacher?
Then
know. There's a special room you go to, like your teacher's lounge, and you can use your cell phone in case there's an emergency. I don't know. There's got to be some kind of way that Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook all have to pay back to resolve this issue if we're calling it an issue. That said, where does personal responsibility, and I kind of hate that term because it's been used so much recently in the last 6 months, to mask up and to not mask up, to take personal responsibility for COVID-19. No BS, put a damn mask on. It's the right thing to do for your fellow man, okay? That's my personal opinion. But where does personal responsibility come in play here? Do we allow our children just to do anything they want on their cell phone? And is that okay if that's what you want your kid to do? Or do you take personal responsibility and say, I don't want my kid to be a zombie by the age of 20, so I'm not going to let him or her have their phone until they're 16, like that one guy did, and they're not allowed but an hour before bedtime and never in bed. That was a great rule.
Yeah.
That's one thing about the documentary that I loved, is that it did not leave you, because halfway through it, I was like, it's hopeless. This is hopeless.
Yeah.
We are no longer going to be able to have anything of what was before, which I don't necessarily think that should be the way that it is, but it's obviously a problem because these people who created the technology think it's a problem. But they left you with hope because they said, you can unplug, you can do this, you can do that. This is what you do. They gave you some options at the end of the documentary to say it's not hopeless.
Yeah, like turn off notifications. That was a big one right there. You talked about that, how you only look at Facebook when you get a notification that somebody, commented on you. That's exactly what happened in the movie. He was interacting with another human being, and then he gets a notification, and then he picks up his phone, and then the next scene is these two friends sitting right next to each other on their phones, not talking, not interacting, a foot and a half away from the other person. So that is the power, the potential power of just one notification and dialing in on that. And the other thing you were talking about was like scrolling. The fact that scrolling is now infinite. Like, I don't know when that really started, but you keep getting stuff. Like, and for someone who's like a completist, when I was a kid, I was like, I need to get every single one of these football cards, and like I need to get number 1 through number 800. Like, I gotta get all of them, and then like I'm only missing 3 cards, and like you spend all of your time like trying to get those 3 cards. Like, can you imagine what it would be like to someone who is an absolute completist with like, I need to see every single tweet from every single person that I follow before I go to bed, and it just keeps going.
I have to make another Gilmore Girl reference. Lauren Graham, who played the mother on Gilmore Girls to Alexis Bledel, she was on Ellen, and Ellen's like, you're really huge and famous. You should have a Twitter account. And she said, why? And she said, because that's what we do nowadays. You can connect with your fans. And Lauren Graham, in Lauren Graham's way, because she's brilliant, and just the way she is as a human being is just, it's brilliant. She turned and she said, Yeah, but you do realize it never ends. It just keeps going and going and going and going. So why would I want to be like, no? I mean, she did set herself up for a Twitter account because she's a huge actress. And, you know, it is a great way to connect with your fans. And she understands that. But
it was probably her PR firm that did that.
Maybe. But there's a ton of people, young and old, and in between, who do not have social media accounts, who are famous, and they don't. The thing that gets me about social media, and we've talked about this before, is that if you go into a job and you're interviewing for a job and they want to know how many Twitter followers you have, and that's a potential reason to hire somebody, that's where it starts to really become very black and white for me. I think that's absurd. That said, the other side to that is what if you're becoming an actor? What if you're the advertisement department of this store that you work for? You're going to have to be in social media. So it's like having good credit going into the military. You can't have bad credit going into the military. There's a lot of irony right there, and I'll leave it alone. But I'm sorry, my political soapbox almost came out, but I stopped. I kicked it back under the table, ladies and gentlemen. It's back under. Calm down. Okay. So you can't have bad credit. You just can't. You have to be able to manage your credit in the military. And if you don't, it affects your status in the military. So in order to be part of an advertisement for a company, I could understand how if you don't have a big Twitter following or a social media following, then I can understand why somebody might be, well, if you can't do that for yourself, then how are you going to do that for my company? So I understand that too. I just think it's a very slippery slope. That said, we have always had self-image problems. 20 years ago, bulimia existed. 20 years ago, body dysmorphia existed.
But 20 years ago, you weren't able to take a picture of yourself on Snapchat and hit one button, hit a filter that takes all of your pimples away, makes your nose smaller, makes your eyes bigger, and makes your ears a little bit closer together. You weren't able to do that, but now you can.
I'm okay with nothing about that statement except for getting rid of your pimples, because those are one things I will never understand why they exist. But that's not true though, because on a lower level or on a smaller level, you could very easily go out and get the preppy clothes freshman year and be part of a clique the next day because of what you were wearing. So it's sort of the same thing. No, you can't alter your image to people. No, yeah, you can. Because you become the jocks, the football star. You become the jock. You become the cheerleader. You become the actor. You become the whatever that makes your existence in high school, which is a horrible place anyway. That should all be regulated in a different way anyway. They should have devices to just shut people the hell up in high school because it's just a horrible place. But it's always been that way. It's just multiplied immensely in the last 20 years. And they were talking about the suicide rate has gone up. The suicide rate in the military has gone up. All of these things have gone up. And the documentary doesn't give many facts to back up that that's based on social media, but they are saying that it's
a contributing factor, definitely.
Yes, thank you. I was going to get to those words. So we should look into it. I understand that, but that's where I come back to personal responsibility, because when the young girl's in the bathroom and she starts to tear up because of what she's read on Twitter or whatever she's on, Instagram probably.
The actress's name is Sophia Hammond.
We have to remember that name. She's going places. She's got something. When she cracks that safe open, that plastic safe, which is a great device, by the way, why did you not turn your phones off, first of all, when your son turned his phone in to do the 7 days, which he only went 3.5 days, by the way, and no one said a word to him about it? You should have had them turn their phones off. Your phone goes off during dinner time. That should be a rule. And if she busted that piece of plastic open to get her phone out, that would have been the last time she saw her phone until she was mature enough to handle having that phone, because she's obviously not mature enough to handle that phone. So where's personal responsibility? It was actually a fully formed little mini movie inside there. they had a lot of interesting things. Did you notice when the older daughter was sitting on the couch with the mother, the older daughter was reading a book and the mother was on an iPad?
Yeah.
That to me is a brilliant choice because she still loves her mother enough to be a teenager and show her physical affection. That says something about their relationship. And then she's reading a book.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, I don't know what I would do because I don't have kids and I'm not an influence. I'm not influential of in a child's life to where I can say yay or nay to something like that. For me personally, I think it depends on the kid, but I also think that if you don't read your book, you don't get your phone. If you don't spend an hour reading your Harry Potter book, you don't get your phone. It's the same thing that my parents used to do when I wanted to watch some TV show. You need to read your Hardy Boys, because it was Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew for me, which I actually think I'm going to read those books because I loved those books when I was a kid. Anyway, I've been thinking about that actually recently. But if I didn't spend an hour reading the book and they quizzed me on it, it's Saturday night. I wasn't able to watch whatever the movie of the week was or whatever the consequences were. If you didn't do your chores, you don't go trick-or-treating until your chores are done. It's the same thing. So I do think these companies have a responsibility, but in a capitalistic society, where does that responsibility start? You mentioned TV and radio and newspapers have a responsibility and have these things already planted in, or I guess worked in, to show responsibility to the human condition. But if they could, wouldn't they?
Yeah, we kind of saw that with cable companies in the 80s. I mean, HBO and nowadays with, I mean, there's shows that are on cable channels that we wouldn't be able to show that same content on a broadcast channel, and I mean that's fine. But the regulation is minimal, if anything. I mean, I think that they do follow the EAS, like the emergency alert system protocols still. So if there's like an emergency alert, then they'll pass that through. But that's more like a courtesy. I don't know if there's anything necessarily that's regulated for the cable companies for that. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they're considered a utility or not. There's some sort of regulation, I'm sure, but either way, you did see an expansion of broadcast television. It's like, oh, we're not able to play, we're not able to get as much money from you. We're not able to get any money from you directly from the users with broadcast television. But if we run a cable up to your house and then you plug that into your TV, then you can pay us for that. And that's what cable companies are. And essentially we still have cable and satellite and all that stuff. And the regulations on those is minimal. I mean, there's movie channels and you can pretty much say and do whatever you want on a cable channel. So that is in effect what you're talking about, writ large on a television scale. But I mean, with social media, it's a totally different thing. The other thing is that television is a passive medium, and radio is a passive medium for the viewer or for the listener, and social media is an active medium. You now have your own broadcast platform as a user of social media. And you're not ingesting data, you're also publishing data. And so in a lot of ways, it's a different paradigm. And nobody's ever had a newspaper company in their pocket. Nobody's ever had a television station in their pocket until today. So that is something that has detrimental effects. It also has beneficial effects. I mean, we're seeing cell phone video over the last 15 years that you would have never seen video of before, and that's brought things to light. So, I mean, you can't say that all technology is bad and you just like bury your head in the sand, but at the same time, we have to, I don't know, as a community, as a society, be responsible about it. And I don't have here's my 10-step plan. I don't have that, but at the same time, it doesn't seem like anybody's really worried about it. And that's the creepy part, is that nobody's willing to, they're like, I don't know what your problem is. I'm getting Instagram for free and that's all I care about. So leave me alone. That concerns me. So hopefully enough people will click on this video while they're scrolling through the infinite choices on Netflix, and they'll watch at least a little bit of it, and maybe they'll think twice the next time they pick up their phone in the middle of a movie to check Twitter.
When they were talking to all of these people in the documentary and they said, well, what's the worst case scenario? And the one guy went, civil war. I went, oh, okay, wait, how's that work? And then they explained how things are being manipulated. And we've talked about, we haven't talked about, you and I, but the world has been talking about Russia interfering with our election last time, and that they're doing it again, and how those kind of things can influence people. And I understand that we need to stop the cigarette companies from lying to us and putting chemicals in that make them more addictive, and to let the public know that that's happening. But once the public knows that that's happening, how many people do you see that are in the age range of 20 to 25 who are smokers nowadays? They have all the information. They know that it's bad. They know the deal. They have all the movies, all of the documentaries. They have everything, but they still choose to smoke because maybe it's enjoyable. I can't remember the reasons why I even started. And I can't remember enjoying it for a long period of time. It just was part of my life. It was just part of the way that I was. So when do we wake up and say, because there's people who are in denial about the Russian interference. When do we say, as an individual, and I'm going to say it again, personal responsibility, when do we say to ourselves, okay, I'm going to go to Fox, NBC, MSNBC, CBS, ABC. I'm going to see all of these things about this thing I should be voting on. I'm going to read the BBC's webpage on this issue, and I'm going to figure out for myself, based on the information that I've taken in, how I feel about this issue. So I'm going to vote on this issue and this candidate because of what I've learned. When do we say it is your responsibility to educate yourself and to be smart enough to educate yourself on the issue so nobody can manipulate you, because you can say, oh no, wait, that contradicts this, and this. Let me fact check. Because there are people out there who are doing legitimate news. We were talking about this before the podcast. Fox News gets a lot of bashing because of their personalities. But the newscasters, the people who are telling the news, if you were to just turn that on, at the same time you were to turn on the same person on ABC, wherever else, they're going to be telling you the same facts. You can either take to Anderson Cooper and believe his personality and what he has to say, or Sean Hannity, whoever you want to take as a personality, but they're personalities. But the facts have not changed from that story. That's just that personality telling their side of what they think the story is, or what they think is going to get the person to watch their particular news time, okay? Or how Anderson Cooper looks, because he's totally handsome. So maybe people like to listen to him because he's a cutie. I have no idea, but the facts are there. The newspaper comes out every day. You can still read a newspaper. You can still read the New York Times, the Washington Post, your local paper. You can read, the libraries have papers sometimes. You can read your small hometown paper, and they will be telling you the facts. So once you know the facts, then you go out and you vote for the candidate or the proposition or whatever you're voting for, the amendment, whatever it is you're voting for based on your education. So whose responsibility is it to have people wake up and say, we're being manipulated? I can't imagine that somebody who's making money on Twitter cares less about what the facts are at this point. They just want to make money. Yep. And maybe until we are not a society where money is that important, that it motivates us to do things that we might not do, maybe in that idealistic world, those are huge rose-tinted glasses there, man. That's like a wraparound headpiece of rose-tinted glasses, because that's not the world we live in. I'm sorry, that soapbox kind of slipped back out from underneath my desk. I tried to kick it back, but it got on my knees, and I kind of got up on my knees there for a split second. Why should I stop you from selling cigarettes? Because I know they're bad. I have educated myself. I know they're bad. I know that I don't want to die of cancer because of smoking, so I choose not to smoke. But where is it stated in the human condition that I have to tell you you can't because it's bad for that person who doesn't know the education that I know?
Yeah, you're trying to prevent some sort of like a nanny state from happening, where it's like a small group of people determine what's good and what's not good, and so I mean, I'm sure that all the people in the documentary would love to be able to come up with a way to either demonetize or de-incentivize the processes that are being employed today to get people to stay on these social media networks. And that's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen until or unless there's some sort of, I don't know, there's already been catastrophes. There's already been, people going on Facebook Live and live streaming murders and live streaming suicides and all of these things. So, I mean, it's not like it's something that, is far off in the distance. I mean, it has happened. These technologies have been used for really malicious things. But at the same time, they've been used for amazing things. I mean, they've been used, I think they talked about it a little bit in the documentary, they've been used for finding kidney donors and getting different people together to share things as far as like helping people to recover from maladies and all kinds of, I mean, getting communities together that were underrepresented and giving them a place to get together and to help each other and to support each other. I mean, that's something that you just weren't able to have before these social networks, and specifically before the internet. So I mean, I understand that there's good as well as bad. It's just we just have to be cognizant of the bad along with the good, and we have to, I guess you just have to, like you said, you have to understand what you're getting into. And if that's the case, then you know exactly what kind of risks or what kind of responsibility you're taking going onto a social media platform. And there are ways to wrestle it down. I mean, I don't surf the internet. I don't go to websites. I am very specific about how I interact with the internet. I have it's an RSS reader. It's called Feedly. There's a bunch of them out there, but I curate the things that I allow into my interaction with the internet. There are certain things that I'm very interested in, and there are things that I could care less about. But whether it's politics or whether it's hobbies of mine, movies or you name it, there's different things that I'm interested in, and I allow those things in, and it is an aggregator. It brings things together for me to go through, and I can go through those things instead of having to just reach out and say like, what's on Facebook today? Or what's on Twitter today? What are people talking about? And that's probably detrimental to, I mean, shoot, we're probably doing it wrong as far as our podcast is concerned, because we should probably be out there just like tweeting every 5 minutes and trying to generate interactions and all that stuff. But at the same time, I think that maybe I'm just afraid of what that would do, how that would change me.
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm not afraid of what it's going to change me. I'm not that interested in the technology. So if we hired somebody to tweet for us and we could tell them what we wanted to tweet, and then they went on their little Twitter wars and did their thing, I'd be fine with that. But I am not interested enough to do that. I don't want to get into a conversation with somebody on Twitter about something about a film that they don't like. I'm not interested in that. So I don't have any problem with that part of the addiction. I think that these people, Tristan Harris, for example, in this documentary, I think that they spent their life with Google and then realized, yeah, this is not a good thing. But now he works for the Center for Humane Society. He's a co-founder. So he's out there trying to reverse or make not reverse, but he's trying to make people understand. There was another guy that I really like. I believe he was the one guy who said that he didn't allow his kids.
It was Tim Kendall from Facebook.
Yeah. You can tell that they are not scared about what will happen. They are doing what they can to let people know that it is happening. Mm-hmm. And so they are probably sleeping fine at night because they are trying to at least show the other side. It's like Russell Crowe's character in Insider. He was just telling the facts. And because these facts were detrimental to somebody making money, it became this big thing. So he just had to do the right thing. And there are just as many people out there who are trying to do the right thing. And this documentary is filled with them. And so we can debate the issues of whether or not this is part of our human nature or not, whether or not we're an addictive community or not. But there are people out there who are trying to say the other side of this exists. I think that the reason why people didn't care about sugar-coated snaps or whatever being advertised was because TV became a babysitter and iPads become babysitters. And I get it. Like, if I could have watched a movie in a car traveling to Philadelphia when we would go there for the summers, I would be more than grateful and just keep my mouth shut the whole entire time I was watching the Harry Potter trilogy. Because my brother was like, well, is this bad? Because my kids are not experiencing the same things I experienced when I was a kid, looking out the window, imagination, blah, 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 blah. And he did try to regulate that. Like when they went over bridges, they turned off the movie and they went fake fishing off the bridge as they were driving over the bridge. What kind of fish did you catch? And they would all pretend to catch fish. Or they would all raise their feet over train tracks and wish for something good. What'd you wish for? It's okay. We're going to the train tracks. It's not the same thing as a birthday wish. So those things did happen. But he said, what are my kids missing? And I said, what are you not missing? Because what about all the times that we got on mom and dad's nerves because we were so bored in that back seat that we just acted up because we were so out of like our heads to do something because we're little kids cramped for 6 hours in a car. If we had a movie to watch, mom and dad would have put the movie on too. So it comes down to self-regulation and personal responsibility for me. That said, it's hard because all those people don't know that, you know, the cigarette analogy is coming up again, that the chemicals are there to make it more addictive. So they think they're just cool and they're smoking and it's like this cool thing and you get a little head buzz. But what they don't understand is that the chemicals are developed to make you instantaneously addicted to that. Mm-hmm. So this is an interesting documentary because it does make you aware of it on a certain level. So what I told you earlier about reading never makes me feel like I wasted any time. So I actually consciously tried to not look at my phone the next day. Because when I woke up the next day after watching this, I was like, wait, I do look at my phone before I go to the bathroom. Wow, I never look at my phone while I'm in the bathroom. That's disgusting to me. Like, I think that is the grossest thing in the whole world. I just think that's gross. But I was like, I did wake up to look at my phone to see if I had any emails. Is that part of this addiction? So that next day, when I went to go reach for my phone, I said, you know what? I'm not looking at my phone at all today. If anybody needs me, they can call me. If it's that much of an emergency, they can call me. Sure enough, about 4 hours into it, though, I picked it right up, not thinking, swiped right over to Facebook. Luckily, there was no notification, so I didn't go to Facebook. There were no notifications on Twitter, but I did check to see if any more people had viewed our YouTube page. And that, to me, is something that's becoming an addiction to me. I actually look quite often during the day to see how many people have looked at, but I don't think it stops my day from happening. I scroll, I look, I'll go, oh, okay. Now, just like you do, I am rereading Dune. There's a story behind that though. By listening to it on audiobook at the same time. Mm-hmm. Well, the audiobook is on YouTube for free.
Oh, cool.
So winning. And that opened up, no pun intended, a rabbit hole or a wormhole. Let's call it a wormhole because of dedication to Dune. And it was all of these deleted scenes from David Lynch's Dune that I had never seen before. And I was like, oh, I just read that scene in the book. Oh, that's interesting. That was in that movie. And I spent about 45 minutes looking at stuff, reading about Dune, blah, blah, blah. But that's based on my interest in what I'm reading. Not based on I've got nothing better to do and my addictive personality is taken over and I'm going down a wormhole right now. It's based on something, just like looking up stuff for this podcast. So I feel okay.
Yeah, there's a difference between intentional use and passive use. And I think that when you go to Google and you look up, oh, I want to see who won the 1876 election, that's different than I got 10 minutes to kill. I'll go to YouTube or whatever. So I think that there's a difference between, seeking out information and seeking out, entertainment versus just letting it wash over you and not even really picking it, just kind of like literally doing the least amount possible, flicking your thumb.
Well, that one guy, the guy with the big long dreads,
Jaron Lanier.
He said, never pick what they choose for you.
The suggested video.
Yeah, a suggested video. Never pick what's recommended for you. always choose yourself. So even if I see a video now that is recommended for me, I go ahead and type it in.
Yeah.
As if I'm choosing it myself.
That's
good. The little things, man, the little things.
All right. Well, hopefully this was interesting to everyone. And at the very least, if you interact with this documentary, you will hopefully get something from it, and it at least make you think twice. That's kind of what we're going for. So, all right. You can check us out on the web at actorandengineer.com. You can go to facebook.com/actorengineer. This is weird. Why am I like, this is me saying all of this after we talk about all this. It's like, hey, here's all of our social media networks. Ugh. See, this is why it feels weird. You know what I mean?
The first one's free, kid. Just take one hit. It won't hurt you.
It feels super weird. So I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, I don't know what to say.
It felt weird to go on my phone the next day.
Yeah.
It felt weird to go on my phone the next day,
and it's sad to say, like, oh, it's the world we live in, and we just got to deal with it. But I mean, hopefully people can find us in many different ways. But really, I mean, ultimately, this is our product. Our product is us talking, and there is a deregulated way to listen to what we say. We're not beholden to anybody. We don't have ads. We don't have agendas. We just are interested in movies, and that's it. So hopefully you can find us. We'll see you next time.